So a great moment in the ministry of Jesus, a very important moment, where he commissions the 12 and sends them out, the apostles, apostoloi, those who are sent. And in this moment, we get a few instructions from Jesus. But if we lose sight of the fact that Jesus is addressing a particular issue of his day, then we might not be able to then see how his teachings help us in the church in 2026. So first, Jesus looks out at the crowds, and he sees they are abandoned, like sheep without a shepherd, and he has pity on them. This is a clear indication that Jesus views his own people, the people of the nation of Israel, the chosen people, as having been misled. Their leaders, their priests, their Pharisees of that day had not transmitted the faith as God intended. And they didn't know any better. They didn't truly know what Moses had taught, because their leaders hadn't taught it to them themselves. But then Jesus turns to his disciples and says, "The harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few. So ask the master of the harvest to send out laborers for his harvest." What does that mean for Jesus and his disciples? They're the ones who are going to fix it. It's not going to be the leaders of Israel. It's not going to be Annas and Caiaphas. It's not going to be the Romans and their great armies. It's going to be this ragtag group of believers. And every one of them has a role to play, even if the role is merely asking the master of the harvest to send out laborers. That's a role as well. But then, from his disciples, he calls 12. And we get their names. And who are these 12? Do they come from the cream of the crop of ancient Israel and Judeo-Roman society? No, 4 of them are fishermen. One's a tax collector who cooperates with the Romans, and another is a zealot who rebels against the Romans. Those two would not have gotten along at the campfire. In Jesus' day, he wants to show that God chooses the broken, the marginalized, the forgotten for great things. It is not the values of society that Jesus looks to choose his leaders. He sees underneath it. He sees these men for who they are. Men who are willing to say yes to great sacrifice so that the harvest can be abundant. Finally, Jesus gives them authority over unclean spirits, and he gives them instructions. Don't go into Samaritan towns, blah, blah, blah. But it's that last part I want to focus on. Without cost you have received, without cost you are to give. You see, in Jesus' day, it was very common for rabbis, fortune tellers, soothsayers, Pharisees, healers, to go around the region and perform miracles, offer lessons, give teachings, cure illnesses. But they would always charge. And they would enrich themselves. I mean, what's one of Jesus' major criticisms of the Pharisees throughout the gospel? They enrich themselves. They like fine clothing. They like the places of honor. And what Jesus is saying to his 12 apostles, you are going to be a counterexample to this by radically relying on the grace of God for your sustenance and for your survival. And so when we look at what Jesus has said in our gospel today, we see it gives a very particular counter to a problem in Jesus' day and age. But what can we learn from it? How do these lessons apply to us 2,000 years later? First, ask the master of the harvest to send out laborers for his harvest. We all have a role to play. Jesus has chosen each and every one of us to help fix the problems of the world, of the modern world. And if you think similarly to Jesus, maybe you look out in the modern world and you see hopelessness and abandonment, people who don't know what to do. People don't know what's right and what's wrong. People don't know how to navigate through life. And we have the answers. But if we think that that's not my role, if we think that's not my responsibility, only the apostles, well, then the sheep will continue to be without a shepherd. Second, although each of us has a role to play, our roles are different. Everybody's role is unique, even if it's the same as a group of people within the church. For instance, Jesus chooses 12 men. The priesthood is exclusively male. Half of the Catholic population is ineligible to serve in that way. But that doesn't mean that we can't or shouldn't or are unable to serve. All of us can contribute in some important way because Jesus chose fishermen and tax collectors and revolutionaries to be his leaders. We are the same. Broken, unsure. Maybe we don't have all the answers. But we are all, in some way, whether as a priest, as a layman, as a religious, we are called in some profound way to help other people in the church. Third, without cost you have received, without cost you are to give. Now this might seem pretty straightforward because we're Catholic. My salary's set. I don't make a lot of money. And that's a good thing. Religious leaders shouldn't be wealthy. It is a clear indication that something is off within the clergy. If you ever see me roll up in a Lamborghini, ask questions. But is that one just for us? Is Jesus just giving a warning to his 12 apostles, and as leaders you'll be held to a higher standard, and that you really need to give this counter to a problem that's in the first century Judaism? Have you received anything freely? What about the oxygen that you breathe? What about the health, the good health that you enjoy? Or maybe the recovery from bad health that you were able to make your way through? What about the lives of your children? The sun that shines upon us all? None of us have earned any of this. And on top of that, because we have been called into the church and accepted the invitation, we have received the greatest gift of all, eternal life. Do we share these gifts with others? That is to say, do we give of ourselves for the benefit of the lost, the abandoned, the marginalized, the shepherdless? Because, brothers and sisters, you and I have the truth. You and I have the solutions. You and I have the words of eternal life. Whether we're a priest, a mother or father, a single person, a young person, an elderly person, a middle-aged person, an educated person, an uneducated person, whether we're rich or poor, all of us are called to contribute in some significant way. The question for us is, will we answer that call? Will we say yes to the Lord, who looks out upon the lost sheep of our world today with pity? And He desires to send us to help them. Will we say yes?